Welcome to Draw Process. I'm Ike. This is where I draw pages of my comic and process about the techniques I'm using and my development in being the practice of my art. So, page 58 of my comic, First Sun and Sword, episode 2. That's what I'll be drawing today. Hope you enjoy. The characters are traveling down the dock to the dead end. They're going to try to pull in a boat. And the lizard monster's following. That's all that I need to convey. I've got us in a pretty simple location, somewhat in a way. It's challenging with the background, but it's just this boarded dock, just that they're standing on with water underneath, a few boats, and then the background's pretty far in the distance, so I can do some small lines to indicate the hills, the buildings without much detail. So it leaves the background pretty open. That'll help for all the action we're going to have. First shot. Here, you can see what I'm scribbling out. The dock, the characters positioned in the middle. They're pretty small, so this is an establishing shot. Nice word balloon space. I have them very centered in this panel. It could have been tempting to cut the panel off right at their feet, thinking that you don't need anything below them. But by actually centering them and having space below them as much as above, it's a simpler, cleaner composition. But it also feels like an establishing shot. It establishes them in the space, quite literally in the center of it. The next shot, right in line with them, Kurok running down the dock. I don't do repeat shots. Because I hand illustrate, I don't want to try to match a background exactly, so I generally do not keep the camera in exactly the same place, because then it would be obvious if it wasn't consistent. What I needed to convey in these next two panels there is the Kurok, the lizard man, getting even more tired and having to stop, hunched very low, huffing and puffing, hacking and coughing, and then starting to, just really stop and be hunched over. So the bottom of that panel is going to be the dock. It's going to be the posts, the boards that he's on will be used as a panel border. And then for this panel on the left, I thought, I want to show everything. I want you to see everything. So this very high up view, but not straight up, and let the dock grow out towards the bottom of the panel, a nice triangle, so a clear shape for the eye to see. And you see Kurok at one end of it, very small, of course, and them at the close end. We can come in for a medium shot. This is a slight up angle. We're looking up at them. And we're it's as if Sword is pointing right at the camera. The camera's low. That's more interesting. But not only that, by keeping the camera low, I can line up a standing figure with a squatted figure. So Farah's standing. He's squatted down in the cart, so he's shorter. And then Sun's shorter too. By having the low horizon, them on that angle, I keep them in line, and I keep Farah low so that the word balloon can be above her. If the camera was dead on, or if I changed the angle, maybe the balloon would have covered her up. So it only makes sense to use this angle. But it also is fun because Sword's pointing right at what he's talking about, and he's pointing right at the camera. And he's telling Sun to drag in the boat. So now in this last panel, I'm trying to work out how do I show the boat and them? How do I want to show that? I think that first shot I might have been thinking, I'll show the boat, kind of the perspective from on the boat and across at them, and you can just see the rope on the boat, see them. I don't do too much of that. It's cinematic, of course. You see that in movies. I try not to do too much of it. I like to go with an establishing shot that shows the space better. The distance between things really establishes that for you. And so you'll see I went with a side view Just you can clearly see the boat, clearly see Sun pulling it. No fancy tricks. And this is coming along very quickly. You may remember from prior episodes that I have the very rough pencils I did already. So what you just saw up until here was done initially back to back with the other pages within a span of a week or two. And now I'm going back and finishing the pencils. So this is a new day, maybe a week later even. And I'm going on to those rough pencils and interpreting them and elaborating them and refining them, making them nice and clear. I can see how it's possible that I could get to a place where this is clear enough that we can just print it like that. Maybe this would be possible. But if that's possible, then why not just ink it? Go straight to ink from very rough pencils, or just maybe refine the pencil slightly more and then ink. Because I do think I prefer ink over pencil as far as style of a finished product. You'll see I have to reposition the word balloon tails because I like to keep them pointing pretty nicely at the head or mouth of the character. So refining that. And then we have the huff, huff, huff. I'm hand lettering in that just to give it more character and put it in with the art. And have it sort of trailing over and behind him as he's moving along. The words are trailing behind just like his breath is. I tried to find an angle where there's plenty of sky there so that you get a nice bright negative space at the top. And then for this, there's no background, kind of. I think I went ahead and put a hill in, so you'll see that just a slight indication of the background, but not a full background on this. And nice simple flat shot here. And the some shadow there is just to, the hatching lines. This is just to give some form. The light is to the left above, and I'm trying to keep that in mind as I place my shadows. Again, trying to get more rounded lately. I noticed this happening. I don't know if I could say I'm trying to, but my drawing draftsmanship has been improving, we could say, developing. And I like to use more clear, rounded forms to convey different body segments, especially when they're small on the page. And so right now I notice I have a confidence with drawing things small that I didn't have before as much. This was actually pretty annoying or challenging, this part, because I knew there needed to be boats in the dock, and I already drew them in the last panel when I did the establishing shot. For the story, it's kind of important that all the boats are harbored, because they've shut down everything. But exactly where those boats are positioned and how far apart and how far up the loading dock here, this was a little challenging as I'm drawing the next page, or the upcoming pages. How many times do I have to draw a boat, and how's it tied to the dock, and I've got to throw that in on the upcoming pages and try to have some consistency. The figures are rounded and organic, as I was saying with my latest drawing development. But the backgrounds are more and more so as well. My backgrounds are organic. Even if they're straight lines, things are pretty loose and organic. That is intentional. It helps me have consistency through every bit of it. And no matter what I'm drawing, I'm drawing it in the same fashion. I don't know if I can do this forever. If I was doing a certain style of book, a sci-fi book, I might need some real straight lines, and I might use a straight edge for that. But I like everything being natural, and I draw everything in the same way I draw anything else. So it's easy. There's no challenge. There's no pressure on or cumbersome part. Every part of this, I'm trying to make every part joyful and enjoyable for longevity, for what seems right to me, how one should draw comics, how one should live. We all have our own way, our own values, and this is mine. Like I say on this channel, be the practice of your art. I am trying to have this dialogue and learn about my practice, which has to do with my way, my value system, how one should live life, or how one should draw comics. What do you value? And I'm showing it with every drawing I do, every choice I make, every time I continue the practice, and it evolves as it unfolds and evolves. I get to see. I get to see reflected back to me, that the changes I'm making, sort of, I get to see evidence of that evolution. That allows for adapting and evolving. But I do make the case for my way of doing it to make it enjoyable. All the more so if when there's not a ton of money in comics, let's say, for most of us, there's not. Why not do it in the way that is the most true to you, rather than what you think the market wants? Here I am penciling in the boat. It was very rough pencils. I'm throwing it in, and I'm going to move it after I do it. And the reason why, the only reason here, is because it was drawn like it was straight off the end of the dock, but I wanted it to be to the left of the dock. I needed its base in the water to be closer to the camera and not in line with the dock precisely. So I had to pull it forward and still try to keep the main sails positioned well and not out of going too high out of the shot and so on. So yeah, I'm evolving, and that's been fun to do. And that's what I'm trying to show you with this series, is how one could make an attempt, one could try to evolve. And you're seeing me do it. If you go back to the first episodes, you will see a lot of change from where I was. And my books end up a little inconsistent for that reason, because I make long books lately, 70 to 90 pages here. But so they're more inconsistent because it's over a longer span of time in one book. But I am willing to make that sacrifice in order to continue to evolve. I put a high value on evolving, being on the leading edge, the cutting edge of my development. And that's enjoyable. That's exciting for me. The more, I don't know what it is, getting older or more busy or more opportunity. For example, opportunity to make money, and instead I do this, which isn't going to make as much as I could doing something else, let's say. or when I could be investing in relationships, which would be great to do because that pays dividends in old age, especially. So there's so many things I want to do that are valuable to do. So many different opportunities that I could, or things I could at least invest in to develop. And I choose this. And I keep choosing this. That is sacrifice. That is commitment. It's very clear to me lately how much commitment it takes to continue to be my practice. It wouldn't take much. I mean, everything I'm doing here is invented by me. My development, this evolution process I'm going through, my practice, meaning, how I do it, when I do it, all of that, and the developmental course I'm on, all of that is entirely fabricated. It's invented. It's an idea. It's not real. It happens. You can see the result here in the video. There, something emerges, something happens, but it's all based on an idea. It's all pretend. And compared to real things like relationships, which, well, they're also pretend because we make them up, but they involve another person, or making money. There's a real thing, it's actually money. But yeah, compared to that, this is a fantasy. This is an idea. It's not concrete. It's not real. And if I stopped, or if I change what I'm doing, I mean, that's part of what's exciting about it, is if I change my practice, then something new emerges, new potential. That's exciting and fun. But also, if I were to stop, it all blows away in the wind. There's nothing here. Yes, I would have my old books to show people, look what I did at one point in my life. I did this. This was a challenging, fun thing, whatever thing I did, life experience, learning thing I did. I don't know. But I would have those old books, but it wouldn't exist anymore. I couldn't do this anymore. I could pick it back up. Of course, you can always start back up and try to develop a new practice and adapt from what you might remember from before. But this would cease. Kind of like the idea of if you end a relationship and you get with somebody else, you're never going to have that first relationship ever again. Like, it was unique. It was a unique thing that occurred between you and that other unique person. It's dynamic. It's never going to be the same with someone else. And that's a good example, because that's, it's made up. The relationship's made up between those two people. But if it ends, it's gone for good. So, yeah, I got to keep it alive and keep commitment to it and keep going. And even though there's so many other things I could be doing. Yeah, life is short. Life is short, and I'm sitting here doing this. And you could take that sentence either way. You could think, wow, that sounds like someone's thinking they should quit, that they're being very pessimistic, they're depressed, whatever. You could think of it that way, but you could also think, oh, like, yeah, and yet you're doing it. How serious that makes you. You're doing it, even though the cost of it. It's not. You're not in a fantasy. You know what you're doing, and what the cost is, and you're still choosing to do it. Yeah. Why not? Why not just see what else happens in this development? When it comes to inking strategies, skills, techniques, of course I'm pretty new at using the dip pen, but I am aware that there could be more draftsmanship, better technical proficiency with what I'm doing with my inks. And some of that might not require more time. I mean, maybe a little bit more time. Some of it would require a lot more time to do. But you'll see here I'm actually just freehand drawing some boats. Because I thought, they need to be further back. And then I changed my mind, and I think I wiped those out later. I'm aware that the inking gets, messy. I do these rough lines, but just like my drawings are messy too. They're organic and messy too. I want to draw in that fashion. So I like doing it this way. And I am getting better at it, and I want to keep getting better at it, but within this organic vein. So that's what I'm doing. Yeah, you'll see how I am executing the waves with the hatching lines and some larger shapes, and then the lines following those shapes to give form to it. The not having finished lines for most of these boards on the dock, but I wanted to show them to some degree. The variety of tiny figures that still are clear to some degree. There's some clear details on them. And then with the larger figures, a nice mix. I do think that most comics keep the, camera, if we call it that, the view, is generally way too close. They don't, the figures are never a full figure showing their feet on the ground. Sometimes you might see a comic where it's not a full figure. There's not much variety. They're never very small on the page. They're always kind of the same size in every panel or larger. And then maybe the camera isn't up high like this to give you a nice layout, a nice view of the distance between things and where things are in space. Sometimes that can be disorienting for me when a comic is like that. I like to see it like a movie. I like to see what's happening and know it makes sense to me. When it's just disparate elements, like you see a close up of a hand, and then you see a face, and then you see like a bit of a body with a little bit of someone in the background, but maybe they're silhouetted and not even in detail. Like too many tricks like that and close ups, and I understand that that's valid. That is definitely valid, and I can enjoy it sometimes when I read it. But some of that can, it's so inductive that it's disorienting. Like they never establish the space and the person in the space. So everything's just like these staccato sentence fragments. Nothing's grounded. So I try to do it that way. I've been checking out Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, and definitely from that's more in my vein of style. Him with an animation background definitely draws his comics to show people in physical space. So that's more in my vein. This animated or cinematic kind of style. So you'll see I've got layers of hills creating a sense of depth. And then I have the shape of the wall with the towers on it to break that up. And then a few buildings as it gets a lot closer to us. I can throw in a few buildings. So there's just enough there for you to know that that's a city. But it's very loose, not a lot there. Again, like I said, I want to be able to draw anything that I need to draw. I don't want it to be intimidating for me, challenging and cumbersome to draw a cityscape. So I work on drawing in this loose, undetailed way so that I can draw anything as it's needed. I think that might be a somewhat of a lost skill these days. I think there would have been a time when you would have thought, well, if you're a comic artist, you have to be able to draw anything. I think that used to be more true than it is now. Because I don't know, maybe because there's more people drawing their own books or what they, the sort of stories and things they want to draw. I don't know. But yeah, there's definitely something to having the skill to just draw anything. And if you focus on that, then your drawing style might change to reflect that, be influenced by that. If all you did was, sort of cropped medium shots of figures from a straight-on perspective, for example, you might get really good at that. If all you drew was close, large, very large figures with very detailed anatomy and clothing and stuff, you'd get good at that. But what happens once it's time to draw the background? Now, how do you do that amount of detail everywhere? Or how do you make it work? And how do you draw them smaller and in perspective on the background? Like, I say practice what you want to be good at. This is what I have chosen. I'm trying to max out one characteristic or whatever, like only dexterity or something, right? Because you have to make choices. You can't do it all. Preparing for an art book, making pieces for an art book that we'll be announcing with Clever Kaiju before too long, had me thinking about illustrations, individual illustrations, narrative based typically, and what would I like to produce, and then it's not a comic, and I found that kind of challenging because I forget how to draw when it's not for a story, but I started figuring it out. I tried a few different things. I tried going with a little bit more design-oriented, pieces that might not look like comic art, and then I've tried, focusing on figures, almost like you might expect of a character-based commission. And what I learned there from it was I do want to approach all of my illustrations. Like, I was experimenting some, but I need to just approach them the way I approach the comic pages and let that be what I draw. Like, in a way, really limit myself as an illustrator to this style, this kind of thing. That's narrative, that's action and story based with characters and environments. I should just draw in this fashion for any illustrations I do. That's the finished page, and you'll see that there's no panel border here. I let the white gutter space go right in. I intentionally left that hill in the background, or the skyline below the height of Kurok so that he breaks the silhouette, breaks the line there, stands out on the white background. That word balloon being on the left here will help you go up to the left. After this panel on the left, you'll go to the top one before you go to the bottom one, which most people know they should go top and then bottom in those last two panels. But the word balloon definitely helps you want to go there. And I tried to position it a little bit lower and not just like hugged right up to the top of the border. Because again, I don't want someone to read that word balloon first. They need to go to the panel on the left. So if that word balloon was shoved all the way in the top left corner of the panel, or busting out of the panel even, it starts to distract from where you need to go next. So I intentionally didn't let it go all the way to the top or all the way to the corner of that panel. And I hand draw those word balloons. You'll notice that. I hand ink them, but the lettering is digital. It just makes it easier. I can make changes and edits, corrections, and write, refine and write the dialogue as I go. That's it for this week. Another one down, another step on my journey. See you next time.